Hello and welcome to Read. Today I want to talk about Sátántangó by László Krasznahorkai. This is Krasznahorkai's debut novel from 1985, and it is the first Krasznahorkai that I have read, even though I do own The Melancholy of Resistance and War and War, and I was really actually on the fence about which one to read first, this or The Melancholy of Resistance, but when my brother saw that I had this, he very much recommended that I read it because even though he hasn't read the book, he has seen the 7.5 hour Béla Tarr film. And after I read this book, I haven't seen that film, but I have seen Béla Tarr's The Turin Horse. And as soon as I read this book, I just thought, wow, that is a writer-director match made in heaven. And I will talk about what I liked about this book, which is basically everything, and I'm interested in the fact that I liked this book for reasons that I didn't even realize I wanted out of a book, and which is a really unique experience. You know, a lot of the stuff that we read now, we kind of know it's going to be good, and it's like, but it's an expected good. This really was an unexpected good, and so that's why I do think it was a very kind of meaningful reading experience. I'm going to talk about general plot, but that kind of ties into the form and structure of the book, so there might be spoilers there because there are times where I have to sort of jump between early and late stages of the book. And I'll read some extracts, but really I just wanted to come and talk about how like the experience of reading this book, it is such a grey, misty, almost like a burrowing novel is sort of the most fitting adjective that I could choose. It's not necessarily dark, like the kind of atramentus, pitch black, like exhausting melancholia that you can get if you read some certain other novels. Even though it's bleak in the sense that you're just seeing this town in stasis. So the first half of the book, Krasznahorkai has essentially committed to painting this picture of a Hungarian commune that is like, it seemed like way out west, like they're so cut off from the rest of the world, and I'm not exactly sure. My guess is that in the novel it's still under the communist regime, but I also don't know if the communist regime has just fallen. I know that in real life, the reason Krasznahorkai was able to publish this novel was because the communist regime had fallen, but correct me or let me know if I'm wrong in the comments, if in the novel, in the setting, the communist regime is still active in Hungary. But anyway, we are set up in this town, and the book is divided into 2 parts and 6 chapters in each part. Part 1, we've got chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then in part 2, we've got chapters 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And when I first saw that, I was like, oh wow, so edgy, Krasznahorkai. But there is actually a reason to it, because it is a dance, because it is a tango. The novel winds and then unwinds, or steps forward and then steps back, and you can see that there are structural similarities between those 2 sections. So just to give some minor spoilers, in chapter 6 of part 1, that's the big climax bar scene where just every character pretty much goes to a bar and they have an actual tango dance. And then in chapter 6 of part 2, or the first chapter of part 2, that's when our prophet Satan character Irimias arrives and gives a sermon to the people, and he's sort of working his own dance to get into their minds. And then maybe major spoilers for the next 15-20 seconds. In part 2, we get introduced to Irimias and his sidekick Petrina going to a kind of bureaucratic area, or like talking to judges. And then in chapter 2 of part 2, we see those same people having received a document from Irimias, big spoilers, of him essentially ratting out every single character, and they're trying to rewrite and reword it. But essentially, it seems like all of these people have been ratted out to the government. End of big spoilers. So yeah, we have this sort of mirror duality throughout the novel, but really what you're coming in for, I think, is just how good and unique Krasznahorkai's prose style is. And I mean, I'm saying it's unique because it's the first time I've read it, and I've not seen like other Hungarian authors and whatnot. And if you have other recommendations, please do let me know. But it's got such a, I think, like I said, sort of burrowing, unwinding, digging deeper, not in a like bleak for bleak's sake or just explicitly melancholy, but because it really contributes to creating the setting and the vibe and the spirit of this town. And you kind of get that, firstly, just by physically looking at it. We've got our famous Bernhardian unbroken paragraphs, which even text gets unbroken. We've still got kind of speech marks, but it goes through and it is just essentially one long continuous paragraph for each chapter, although sometimes for structural reasons there are necessary breaks like that. But because of that, there is a potential risk that it could come across as exhausting, but I really, really didn't get that. I just kind of got the idea that I was digging deeper into all of these characters and into all of their lives and their mentalities. And so, because essentially nothing's going on in this town, we're really just kind of exploring the inner psyches and the mentality of all of the characters like Mr. Futaki, the Schmids, and the Halixes, and their relationships. So, of course, there's various affairs and infidelity going on. And just kind of, we spend that whole first half of the book just focusing in on different people and what they're like, with the main plot drive just being that Futaki and the Schmids want out. They want to just take their money and leave, but they've heard that this guy, Irimias, who they knew but has been missing for 18 months, he was presumed dead. They've heard that he's coming back, and when he comes back, but the fact that he's coming back kind of does different things to everybody. And so some people, like a lot of people, just sort of worship him intellectually, like he is this sort of divine prophet, and he essentially convinces them and rallies them to go with him. And that's most of what the plot of the second part of the book is that they actually do go out, and it's their quest almost of getting out. I won't spoil what the last chapter is, but let me just say I had no idea that that's what it was going to be, and I did not see that coming. I'll quickly end up by just reading some extracts to give you an idea as to Krasznahorkai's prose, because it's so good. It had not been the work of a moment establishing the best conditions for observation. No, it had taken years, a series of day-by-day refinements, a process of self-flagellation, punishment, and wave after wave of nausea following endless errors. But with the passing of initial uncertainty and the occasional bout of despair, the time came when he no longer had to watch each and every distinct movement, when objects finally arrived at their fixed final positions and he himself could assume firm, automatic control of his sphere of action at the most minute level, at which point he could admit to himself, without any danger of self-deception or overconfidence, that his life was capable of functioning perfectly. And let me parallel that with there's another kind of deep dive into a character. I think Kerekes is he says this, or the narrator says this about him. It would have been too presumptuous to interpret his unexpected immobility as a gradual unfolding form of invitation. On the contrary, he suspected that the dead eyes turned toward him constituted a threat. But however he racked his brains, he couldn't remember having committed any offence for which he ought to bear immediate responsibility. All the more so, since in the hard hours when a man of sorrows like him was plunged deep into the liberating waters of self-knowledge, he had confessed to himself that his comfortable life, which had slipped uneventfully into his 52nd year, was as insignificant in the great rank of competing lives as cigarette smoke in a burning train. And I'll see if I can find one more. Because in Halix's eyes, Mrs. Schmidt is sort of the she is an embodiment of like everybody is just lustful after her, and in some sense I maybe want to talk about how there are ways in which you can objectify women that are not necessarily sexist, because everyone in this novel is bad, and so it is clear that the sort of objectification of women is a flaw on them, because no one is doing good. Whereas I feel like maybe if I was a bit critical of the objectification of women in Butcher's Crossing, my last video, it's just because it is still sort of painted out to make the main character a hero. I found that, and it was good to read this just to show like you can objectify women in a novel and the author himself not be sexist, because everyone who's doing this is a bad person. But because in Halix's eyes, Mrs. Schmidt was the embodiment of summer, a never-to-be season unattainable to one acquainted only with the ruins of autumn, a winter without desire, and a hyperactive but frustrated spring. And yeah, I hope that those extracts have given you a kind of idea or context as to what his prose style is like. There are long winding sentences. Sometimes they can go on, for more than a page. There's nothing else I want to say without just kind of pointing out big major spoilers. So from here, I will just say thank you so much for watching, and I am very keen to go on and read more of Krasznahorkai's stuff. I'm definitely going to read The Melancholy of Resistance, but I don't know if I'll be able to get that video done within this year. In any case, give me some recommendations for some other works that you like of this style, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video.